Welcome back to Look Who's Here. Thank you for jumping in again, Caleb.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I got 3 questions for you. What's changed since we last talked a month ago? What does that mean? And what would you do? So I'm thinking that maybe we could just start with what's the first thing that comes to your mind if you think about the last 30 days in the market? Is there anything that jumps out to you?
I do feel that June was a typical winter market in Christchurch. Things were moving at a bit of a slower pace. We weren't seeing as many new listings coming on. I think when I was looking at the Trade Me data, the number of new listings was actually down about 5%. I'm looking now at that data. The new listings is up a little bit on this time last year, up 2%. So actually overall stock levels are pretty healthy here in Christchurch, just over 2,000 listings. I think 2,040 at my latest check.
Yeah.
So that tells me that sellers are feeling confident enough in the market in Christchurch to get their properties on the market.
And how does it feel like almost being maybe the 8th time in a June market? Like when you say it feels like a typical June market, that's coming from experience. Like you've actually been through this so many times, this point in the year, I guess. But I mean, does that give you any optimism, I guess, not only with it being winter, but also an election year, and I guess seeing that stock, like having a bit of confidence as a vendor to actually put your house on the market at this point in time? Is that something you're having to climb over in terms of an objection with your appraisals?
And when I say a typical June market, like often my winters can be quite busy. This one is quieter than I've experienced before. But then when I look at everything that's been going on at the moment, we've got war in the Middle East that's pushing up fuel prices. Interest rates are now creeping up a little bit. Yes, we have a looming election. There's plenty of reasons out there for people to hesitate, both buyers and sellers. So I totally understand it. And I remember when I was, early on in my real estate career, I used to be one of those agents who'd be like, don't wait until spring to sell, get your house on the market in winter. But I think with a bit of experience, I've learned to understand that everything is just so much harder in winter. Trying to get your house ready for market at this time of year is hard. The days are shorter. If it's raining all weekend, that's pretty much your window to get anything done outside, just out the window. It's pushing everything out a week. So that's why I don't try to say, winter's great because there's less stock or anything like that. I just reinforce to my sellers that the best time to sell is when you're ready.
Yeah.
Don't treat the seasons as a sole reason for you not to make a move. But I totally understand that everything's just a bit harder.
Does your strategy as an agent sitting down with a vendor differ than if they were doing it during summer or during a hotter market?
Not necessarily. I think really it comes down to what the client is trying to achieve. Are they selling because they want to buy again? Is there another reason? Are they relocating? Are they moving into a retirement village? Every situation is different. A lot of the conversations I'm having are with families looking to upsize. They might be living in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom home. The kids are getting a bit older. They want that extra space. They want the internal access double garage. They want the primary bedroom with the ensuite and the walk-in wardrobe. And so for them, if they're having those conversations now, I'm saying, well, actually, let's map out a plan so that you can get on the market and get your home sold before we have that typical pre-Christmas rush of listings. If we can get you into a cash position, even if it is for spring, when a lot of people think it's the best time to sell, if you're in a cash position then you're going to give yourself the most options. Yeah. Because the biggest challenge for a lot of people isn't so much about finding the right property, it's about not being in the best position to secure it when they find it.
That's a good point. Now we're moving over to the part of the podcast I like to call giving Hausia personalised property advice.
Okay.
Because everything you described sounds kind of like where I'm at.
Yeah.
And so I'm at the point now where I'm like, a bit of space would be nice. Can you coach me through what actually, what's the best strategy for selling to buy? Like that weird period where maybe especially in New Zealand, it feels pretty ambiguous on, okay, so is it bridging finance? Is it like, how have you coached people through that point? And like, is there any tips and tricks you give someone who's looking to sell and buy in a similar market and how to string it together?
Yeah, I typically, say to people in your situation that there are two times of the year where listings are at their peak. And obviously, like if you're looking for something very specific, then that might be quite different. But it's typically October, November, and then maybe a little bit into December, and then February, March is when most people get on the market. Later on in the year, it's people mentally thinking, oh gosh, I just want to get my house sold before Christmas. And then February, March is often all those people who said, oh, we'll get on the market in the new year, and they finally get round to it.
Yeah, right.
And the holidays are just a bit messy with people being away and, you're entertaining family. I totally get it.
Yeah.
So when you think of those being your two peak listing periods, if you are selling in order to buy again, if you can get slightly ahead of that curve, so that you're in a cash position to take advantage of the most options possible. So say, for example, if you're wanting to be settled into your next home before the end of the year, we're in July now. If you can work towards, say, a late August, early September launch towards getting your house on the market, get it sold, say, by early October, that's when things are going to start picking up in terms of new listings to choose from.
Yeah.
And I totally understand that the idea of people selling without having found the next one is terrifying. Nobody wants to be homeless, or maybe the prospect of living with the in-laws for a couple of months is equally terrifying.
Yeah.
So, often the best way to offset that is trying to sell with a longer settlement. So your settlement terms might come into play with any offer that you're looking to consider. Obviously, if there might be a price at which you're like, okay, well, if they paid that, yeah, I'd move out next week. But there are just those things that you need to weigh up. So if you can buy yourself a bit of time with a long settlement, I actually help some of my recent owners. They were in that position. We sold their home in May, and we sold it with an August settlement.
Wow.
And again, they were a bit nervous. They were like, oh, we're not too sure if we're going to find the right thing. Actually, within 2 weeks of them selling their house at auction, they had secured the next one.
Wow.
And they've managed to get the settlement dates to line up, which is really great.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you finding with open home traffic, people are falling into those camps of either houses on the market right now or I'm kind of ready to go? Like, what's the most, I guess, common theme you're seeing from people coming in that front door? Depending on the property, obviously, if it's a first-time buyer property, for example, or an investment property. But yeah, more specifically with those people who already own property and looking to get in something new, do you find people making mistakes, or what's the most common thread you're seeing between them?
I think in terms of your movers, people who already own properties but looking for the next one, I think it's really great that they're getting out there and perusing what's on the market, because I think that's the first step. You want to see what sort of options are available to you before you then make a decision to sell in order to buy the next one. So, yeah, we're seeing people at all stages. They might not yet have their homes on the market. They might currently have their homes on the market. Things are taking a wee bit longer. On average in Christchurch, it's taking 42 days to get a contract, and then you might have your 10, 15, maybe even 20 working days after that to get it confirmed. 20 is out of the norm, by the way, but that's super long. So we're seeing people at various differing stages at the moment. But it's not unusual for me to meet people and say, I've just sold and I'm moving out in 2 weeks' time and I need something quick.
Yeah. True. Where you operate, in terms of parklands and that kind of wider market, what are you noticing? What are you noticing there? Is there anything that's kind of a hyper local change that's happened over the last month, or anything that maybe people living in different areas wouldn't know about the area? What are you noticing there?
Parklands specifically, and this is what I've learned from appraising a few properties in parklands recently, is that the stock is really tight, especially that entry-level 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom type property. In the past 90 days, there were only 3 listings in parklands.
Wow.
So whereas I looked at the search activity, on Trade Me Property, it was up 34%.
Wow.
So more people are looking, but they have fewer options. So that stock is really, really, really tight. So also a shout out for some recent clients of mine. They want to buy in Parklands, 3-bed, 1 bath. If you've got one coming up, let me know, please.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. That's really interesting. Like to see the amount of demand versus supply of it. Did you say 9 months?
No, 90 days.
Oh, 90 days. Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so the last 3 months.
Wow. Yeah. Well, have you like been in appraisals or anything recently with like properties that are in that demographic? And like I would imagine if I was in a similar boat with my house and an agent was telling me that, I'd be like, oh, great. That's yeah. Have you had? Do people respond to that in the living room, like when you're telling them about how much demand there is, or is it just kind of like, oh, well, we're not really ready to sell yet, or because that seems like an opportunity for people, right?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, they'll be driven by their life circumstances. If they're not looking to sell, they're not looking to sell, and that's okay. You know? But those who are weighing up that option, it could be a rental, for example. Do we carry on renting it out versus selling it? And say a house has recently come vacant, they might actually see that and say, oh yeah, now it could be a good time to divest. And so, yeah, I think it all just comes down to what's going to work best for that particular person.
Cool.
So, and it does give them a bit of confidence. I think even when I was looking at some of the stats, even of those 3 properties, some of them did still sit on the market for over 60 days. So to me, that just tells me that if your expectations aren't aligned with the market, even when there is a shortage of supply, the market isn't miraculously going to deliver you what you want necessarily.
Yeah. Okay. So we've covered what's changed, sort of like what it means. What would you do now? Should we just quickly go over like the 3 demographics? Maybe you're a first time buyer, you're looking to sell to buy, and then maybe the last one is you're an investor and you're looking to speculate. Like, what would you do if you're in each of those 3 camps? Is there anything now that people overlook or underestimate about getting ready to enter those 3 stages?
I think my advice to first home buyers is to take advantage of the current market conditions. You might feel that it's super competitive. And if you are looking for something that everybody else wants, chances are you're going to have to compete for it. But what I'm seeing, generally speaking, is that the prices that are achieved are still fair. We're not seeing crazy prices being achieved out there. And what you might find with the odd property that it might need a little bit of work, or it might be just lacking, a key element, whether that's garaging or, the bathroom needs replacing or it needs a fresh lick of paint. Don't necessarily discount those, because in those cases, you might find yourself in a position where you could negotiate a good deal.
Yeah.
Or a fair deal.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing out there with a lot of first-time buyers, because the majority of my stock is quite entry-level, is often when given a chance to negotiate, sometimes they end up being like deer in the headlights and they don't know what to do. They've been so used to like firing off offers at deadlines or even rocking up to auctions and missing out. They don't actually really know what to do when they're the only buyer.
Right.
And some of them half expect that they can throw in an offer and it's sort of take it or leave it, and it doesn't necessarily work like that. Sometimes you need to get into a space where you're a little bit uncomfortable, but think bigger picture.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm going to finally get in the market. I'm going to be paying my own mortgage instead of somebody else's. It's not always going to be like this.
Yeah.
So take advantage of it.
That's brilliant. I really like that, because I think there's so many people that, almost they get advice to get pre-approvals, to go to open homes, to put in offers. But it's like, okay, no one really speaks to them when they're at they're sitting across from a signed piece of paper and they're like, oh, well, there's a 50K gap here. And, I'm not sure what they're thinking. I'm not sure what I'm thinking. I don't know if I like the house this much. But yeah, I guess that's a really good point to think long term. Because eventually, as a first time buyer, you want to be in a position where you're in the market earlier rather than later. And I think because there are so many, it seems like options, like you are able to have a go at the auction and miss out, and have a go at the deadline and miss out. But once you find something that you can actually grab onto and you are the only person in competition, then it's a good place to be.
Yeah. And I think, and again, I understand why. There's no perception out there that prices are going to be higher in 3 to 6 months' time than they are currently, just with everything that's going on in the world and where interest rates are heading and, the election ahead of us. So I get that. But don't you just want your life back a bit?
Yeah.
Do you want to miss it? Do you want to forget about those calls from real estate agents after going through multiple open homes in the weekend?
Yeah.
Like, surely that means something.
Yeah, it's worth buying for. Cool. Okay. Well, that's us, Caleb. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Appreciate the time.
Cool.
See you next time.